used to party together, and some of the things that they were involved in, it would shock you. My camcorder, the battery died. We went to a few of the, the islands over there. We was into Spanish Wells, Harbor Island, Eleuthera, Roxanne, and different parts before we went to Nassau. So I was charging my camcorder. When I got it charged, I went back and I said to brother Mr. Lockhart, Calvin Lockhart, I said, let's pick back up where we was talking about. He refused to, did say it on tape. You know, I guess the moment had left. But Minister Farrakhan was involved with Lola Falana in a relationship, brother. Sister Harriet Muhammad, Mashaki, Salis Muhammad's wife, who was former wife of Akbar Muhammad. She said when she came to visit Minister Farrakhan, he was on the phone with Lola Falana cementing a date. This is documented facts, brother. I'm not speaking of something I don't know what I'm talking about. Again, this man have done so much wrong, brothers and sisters. And I have the tapes of him talking about his wives. So don't say that I'm lying on this, brothers and sisters. I don't have a reason to lie. I'm saying this to those of you who want to say, put this man, where in the scriptures do you find that God would teach one for 3.5 years and that one would teach for 40 years to prepare one he'd been waiting for 38 years to go on and take you further? Cut the BS out, brother. You've been tricked. You've been bamboozled, you've been hooked, winked, you've been all of that, brother. It's been a game, and the game is up. I'm moving on. So we talked about Akbar Muhammad. Akbar Muhammad, again, brothers and sisters, I could tell you the history of Akbar Muhammad. I'm going to play some tapes to let you know I believe Akbar Muhammad was the source of some of this that was in Manny Marable's book. I have a recording of a business meeting. Akbar was a national assistant, not only to Wallace Muhammad when Wallace Muhammad was destroying the nation, but he also was the national assistant to Louis Farrakhan when he was rebuilding the nation. Figure that roll out. But here was Akbar Muhammad. As a national assistant, he came to New York when Minister Linwood was the minister of the Nation of Islam, New York Temple, Muhammad's Temple of Islam, number 7. I want you to hear what he brings up, Sister Sharon, the same Sister Sharon that Manny Marable alludes to. Here's what he said, and this was 29 years ago. Akbar Muhammad, then Larry X. Prescott. Didn't respect him when Wallace D. Muhammad came in, and he became Kareem Abdel Aziz, a special assistant, a national assistant to Wallace D. Muhammad and the boss of Louis Farrakhan. But he did an interview for the Bilalian News, and he said anybody could see that his wisdom, Wallace D. Muhammad's wisdom, is far superior than that of his fathers. He was on to Wallace D. Muhammad. He was back with Louis Farrakhan, and then when he was with Louis Farrakhan in the history of the Nation of Islam, he said Wallace D. Muhammad was the one who could cure insomnia. You put on him, he was the dullest speaker. He said, I worked with that man night and day. You know, go back and listen to the tape. But he flipped on him. Then he came to the Nation of Islam. Then he went back over there. He taught Shabazz, as he taught just recently a few weeks ago in San Francisco Masjid. But again, you don't know where the hell. I'm telling you, brothers, these guys could be the real double agents. I didn't believe John Ali was the FBI agent the way everybody else believed that John Ali was an FBI agent. I never believed that. His son, I think his name was Billy, and them all went to the University of Islam. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has been going almost nearly 40 years, brother. And he still goes out to Muhammad's temple, even though there's a handful of believers out there. So if he was on a job, he didn't quit that job. You know, he's still on it after all these years. So I don't believe that he was an FBI agent. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Whether you believe it, I personally don't believe it, brothers and sisters. Try not to believe it, brothers and sisters. Try not to forget anything. And I'm really trying not to forget anything on this day. Elijah Muhammad was not in charge in 1972. And I'm speaking to those of you at Crow, the Coalition for the Remembrance of Elijah, because y'all can attack me and say I was a child and I didn't understand. I understood much more than you will ever know when it comes to the Nation of Islam. I was a participant. I was not just one who sat on the outside. When I think of Black Family Day, I was working, brother. I was working for Black Family Day. On Rockaway Boulevard, we had the Marriott Kitchen in there with all that fish. preparing for Black Family Day, Part 1 and Part 2. No, I was a worker in the Nation of Islam. I was not just a collector. But I want to say to that business manager, you came in 1972. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was on the decline. He was not in charge of the Nation of Islam, and I've said it, and I know what I'm talking about. The Nation of Islam was running amok. Those ministers, those captains, all of them was wearing big suits. All of a sudden, they all found a flux of money. They all was now living the life, living big time. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was not in charge, brother. There was crime after crime after crime after crime. One of the New York Times reporter did an article in New York where he talked about the Nation of Islam and some financial trouble and some crime. And Minister Farrakhan took to the airways and attacked him. Paul Delaney, I believe his name was. He said, if you want to find crime, go to the White House and go and see your mama. You know, we have all of those tapes, brother. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was not in charge. Let's look at it. In 1972, Savior's Day, his children was trying to get him to sit down. He had to get...
You need it.
My
You need it.
son's round here trying to sit me down. They know I never taught sit me down.
Get a clearance from the doctor just to deliver Savior's Day 1972 speech. He was not in charge. In 1973, he was forgetting some of what he had already had spoken for nearly 40 years. He was going over the 196 and he was just stumbling through it. Huh? He was not in charge. In 1974, he sat down to deliver the speech, Savior's Day 1974, which we call it sometimes the last sermon. He was not in charge. In October of 1993, I met in Brooklyn former National Secretary Abbas Rasul. We got engaged in a lengthy conversation, and he shared with me that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad during that last year had the oxygen tank on him, that he was always in a room isolated pretty much. Huh? That he would come in and he would work, but he would come in and do his thing. I'm saying to you, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was not in charge. You knock Dr. Salam and call him a has-been. He was the principal preacher there at Temple Number 2. And then Wallace Muhammad came in. Minister Yusuf Shah was there, of course, but Wallace Muhammad would come in about 5 months or so before the Honorable Elijah Muhammad would pass. These are actual facts, brothers. But I'm a Muslim. Oh, I said I was going to mention the Bassi files. Bassi is a Bureau of Special Assistance Services investigation on Malcolm X. And these files, similar to the FBI files. The FBI files had theirs, but the New York Police Department kept a special interest on the Nation of Islam in the New York area, and Malcolm X in particular. But some of the wiretaps, some of the things is caught in these Bassi files. What I want you to know, brothers and sisters, here the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's national representative, Malcolm X, was a very sincere Muslim. You want to say he's a hypocrite. But brothers and sisters, look at the facts. Again, separate the emotions, where they came from, and look at the facts. Did the Honorable Elijah Muhammad impregnate those sisters? The answer is yes. The FBI files knew about it many years before Malcolm mentioned it, that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was carrying on extramarital affairs. This is the way the FBI said it. Again, brothers and sisters, for those who want to say they were his wives, I want to say this to you again. Let's use common sense. You know, you want to say, well, this is divine and all of this common. Let's use common sense. When the Honorable Elijah Muhammad passed, the 21 or 22 heirs went to court over the estate. Not one of them women went to have their name in the estate as a wife of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. If they were his wives, The last 5 or 6 months of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he was being cared for by his 2 grandchildren and a private nurse. Do you think while he was in the hospital that his wives, or one of them, could have found their way by his bedside? Very strange, isn't it? So again, brothers and sisters, you can play all of that. This is the wife of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. This is the wife of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. You play those games with somebody who don't know. And I'm not just creating slander. I'm speaking facts, brothers and sisters. So the Bossy Files showed Malcolm X telling the Honorable Elijah Muhammad how he felt embarrassed upon his trip to the East. He said they were praying and he didn't know the principles or how to perform the prayer service. And he said he was so embarrassed over there. He told the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that he should brush up on doing the prayers. Now here's a man, he didn't want to embarrass his leader. He spoke to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad more, to me, real than any of the rest of the ministers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So again, I'm not going to say he was a hypocrite because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said he was a hypocrite. I have supporting documents to show his hypocrisy.
Malcolm is so insane with envy and a lust for power, a lust for television and the press, until he would do anything to get himself out in the open. And therefore he thinks the best way to do that is attack Muhammad or pretend that the Muslims are attacking him. I don't think he's that significant.
But again, he was a young man, full of energy, and then again, you know, sometimes as a defense mechanism, when you're really hurt, you shoot out things. I held my tongue for months, but I was hurt and taken aback by some of the slander stuff that's said about me, because I've always been a brother to everybody. Anybody wanted some stuff, you know, I've been a brother to you. And you know that. Muslims knew me when I was with Minister Farrakhan. I would come to Chicago for Savior's Day. I had a decent job. I used to come to Chicago, you know, with at least $1,000 in my pocket. And there's some of them who are still with Farrakhan today. Know that I used to hand out $50 bills, you know, Happy Savior's Day. Here's some money. These brothers and sisters, I would have a hotel room, and these guys would make it just to Chicago. And just had the car fare to get there, get on the bus, and go back to New York. And I used to feel bad. I would let them stay in my room, take this mattress and sleep on the box spring, have 5 and 6 brothers in my room all through the hotel room. I did this several years. Again, brothers and sisters, this is what I did for the Nation of Islam. I wanted to see the Nation of Islam grow. And I always knew that we had to be separate from the rest of the community to grow right, to take care of it. This integration, as they said, a strong coffee is black. You want to weaken it, put cream in it. Well, you want to weaken the Nation of Islam, put Scientology in it, put the Moonies in it, put these Christians in it, put the integrationists in it, put everything in it, and the Nation of Islam soon doesn't even exist. You know, so you put on uniforms and you think you're righteous and you think you're a holy soldier, but you don't have nowhere to go. It is sad that you put on an FOI when you go to these funerals, you die in your FOI uniform, and yet you're buried right next to a Christian. Here, the United States military have a cemetery for you. If you were a soldier, they'll bury you with the military. We're laid up next to, we don't know who the hell. Could be a rapist, could be a damn, any type of degenerate could be laying next to us, and we just dropped in there. But we are righteous. What did the nation have? The nation in all of these 80-something years, you think that somebody would have said that Muslims, let's have a national cemetery for the Nation of Islam? No, brothers and sisters, they come up with these schemes, and just like they came up with the power products and it failed, the NOI security bankrupt, just like they came up with the calling cards, just as they came up with the water, just as they just keep coming up with program, restaurants, things that would come up and they would go down. Because again, brothers and sisters, the minister is charismatic, but he's not pragmatic. And again,